morning to all. So for all the earlier student, so we are discussing that was a biogeochemical nutrient cycles. So on that today we are going to, yesterday we are completed our nitrogen cycle. So today we move on to discuss about the another cycles. So today's our topic that was actually we are completed in our yesterday class nitrogen cycle. So another cycle today, that was the carbon cycle now. So in these carbon cycle today, so yesterday actually the biogeochemical cycle, the bio that was a living things, the cycle. So the nutrients are got circulated and they are rotated in the form of cycle in the middle of the organisms and environment, they got rotated. So the type of rotation was resemble like a cycle like mechanism that should be occurred in the middle of the biomes, the living things and the environment. Geo means on the surface of the earth. So the chemical reactions are occurred and these are the nutrients all the organisms are needed, but all the organisms are needed, but some of the nutrients are in the form of gaseous state and some of the are in the form of sedimentary state. So those are not directly utilized by the organisms. So before going to utilization of each and every organism, they are going to be fixed. That was a fixation process, then only they are got received by utilized by the each and every organism. So the carbon is also in the form of gaseous state. So the carbon is also in the form of gaseous state. So in the same way the nitrogen cycle, the nitrogen is also in the form of gaseous state. So that was going to be some other process, that was a nitrogen fixation. Here also the atmospheric carbon and aquatic so it undergoes photosynthesis. So it is the carbon cycle. So in these carbon cycle, first the carbon is one of the macronutrient, same as the nitrogen, oxygen, so the carbon. So these are comes under macronutrients. So these are mainly the organism needed in some higher amount. So that's why these are considered as macronutrient. So it was mainly presented in the atmospheric form, but not in the on the surface of the earth region. So that's why what happens is it was going to be utilized by the each and every organism. So some reactions or takes place in the middle of that functioning. So first atmospheric carbon and aquatic means to the water, and water to the atmospheric carbon. So these are a double reaction was occurred. So in the middle of these always the carbon was going to be entered into the water, and from the water to the it was again reached to the atmospheric form in the form of air, that was a gaseous state. So these form of carbon was first directly utilized by the photosynthesis process. So in the photosynthesis process, the carbon was in the form of carbon dioxide in the air. So that carbon dioxide was utilized by the plants by the process photosynthesis. The photosynthesis is the process. So it was a main functioning was inside the plants. The plants perform the photosynthesis, that was a preparation of their own food material in the presence of sunlight and the carbon dioxide and the water. So these are they can able to prepare their own food material. At that time the atmospheric carbon was reached to the plants in the form of carbon dioxide by the photosynthesis process, and the plants are eaten by the herbivores. These are the primary consumers, they feed on the plants. So from the plants to the herbivores, the carbon was transmuted through the food material, and the herbivores to the carnivores, again the carbon was through the food material, the carbon was got transported from the herbivores to the carnivores. So the carnivores, so the plant at the time of plants, herbivores, carnivores, all are the respiration process, the respirator. So at the time of respiration process, all the organisms are inhale the oxygen and they release they excrete the carbon dioxide. So inhalation of oxygen, exhalation of carbon dioxide should be takes place, that is the utilization of the oxygen and the releasing of carbon dioxide. It there mainly the respiration process. In what happened again, the carbon reached to the gaseous state, again that was rotated, and finally they reached to their destination path, that was the final part mainly to the atmospheric carbon. So atmospheric carbon, see this, so the photosynthesis process is one of the process, and the plants, herbivores, carnivores on their respiration, that was reached to the mainly the respiration process. The carbon dioxide was so at the time of photosynthesis only the carbon dioxide was absorbed by the plants. The remaining times they utilize only the oxygen, they exhale the carbon dioxide. So through that these organisms are respirate and they release carbon dioxide into the air, that was entered into the atmospheric, and again reform the carbon, that was oxygen and the carbon got separated. And the another form, the plants, herbivores, carnivore, all are going to be die. So after completion of their lifespan, all the organisms are going to be die. So those dead and decay organic matter by the decomposers. So decomposing bacteria is there. So by the effect of decomposers, the process was decomposing. The decomposers are going to decompose the dead and decay organic matter. At that time the carbon is released. Why? Because these organisms are innerly having the carbon. So those carbon was with the help of dead and decay organic matter and the decomposers, finally decomposing process, that was again so the atmospheric carbon was entered into the atmosphere. So finally the carbon was again entered into the atmospheric form. So these atmospheric form, the carbon finally reached into the atmosphere. It is also one of the process. And the atmospheric carbon was reached to the consumers, means some organisms and that was again their respiration process, the consumers, and that was again entered into the atmospheric carbon. And another process there, the plants, see here, the plants so many years back, the plants are the coal, you know very well, the coal oils are underground. So those are presented inside the underground area on the earth region, the deepest part of the earth. The coal is there. The coal is mainly formed by the help of plants, or after completion of lifespan of plants so many years back, some 1000 years back, the coal is formed. The coal was formed by the effect of the plants undergoes some chemical reactions to form the coal, and oils, rocks are all formed inside the underground, the deepest part of the earth, and the carbonate rocks all are formed by the utilization of the carbon from the plants. So those are undergoes the combustion process. The combustion process was nothing but what happens is see here, so it was mainly to the plants. So the plants are combustion process nothing but the burning process. The mechanism was burning. Combustion is nothing but burning mechanism. So the plants are going to be burnt then immediately, so those are again entered into the atmospheric carbon. So the plants are going to be burning process. So that mechanism was combustion, that was directly entered into the carbon, into the atmospheric carbon. And the plants are so many years back, so those are completion of their lifespan, they undergo some chemical reaction and forms the coal, you know the coal mines. So in our Telangana, the coal mines are very special in our Telangana region, and coal mines and oils and carbonate rocks are formed from the plants, and those are going to be burnt. So the coal was going to be burnt, and oils and carbonate rocks, so that was the combustion process. Again the atmospheric carbon was entered into the atmosphere, and so atmospheric carbon undergoes some chemical combination, some of the chemical reactions. What happens is it was directly formed the volcanic activity. The volcanic activity, you know very well, the volcanoes. The volcanoes are the lava. So if the volcanoes become burnt, then what happens is so by the effect of those volcanoes, so that was mainly the lava inside those are the one of the mountain regions. Those mountains are mainly, so the burning mechanism that was a very high temperature was there. So the lava was mainly presented inside those mountains. Those mountains are considered as volcanoes. The volcanoes become burst. That what happens is that the lava discharged from that volcanoes, that was going to be washed out all the living things. So on the surface of the earth up to the some kilometer area, some hundreds of kilometers areas are going to be washed out with the help of by the discharging of these by the floating of the lava from the volcanoes. So those volcanoes activity was also formed from the atmospheric carbon undergoes a chemical combination and directly form the volcanoes. So those volcanoes burning mechanism, the lava released at that time, also the carbon is released from the volcanoes. Again the atmospheric carbon was stable, and the sun mainly in the environment. So it is about the carbon cycle. And now The water cycle. And also called as hydrological cycle. So, it is a water cycle, you know very well about the water cycle. So that was nothing but about the water cycle. So, in the middle of the the water at the time of mainly in the rainy season and also inside the summer season and the winter season, 3 seasons are there. So, pre-monsoon, monsoon and post-monsoon seasons are there. So, in these 3 seasons what happens is mainly in summer season, see here. So, from the trees and from the water media, aquatic media. So, mainly these are, so by the evaporation process, by the increased temperature, high temperature was there. So, due to that high temperature the water got evaporated. So, the evaporation process and the sunlight mainly by the effect of the sun rays on the surface of the water. So, the water become evaporated by the effect of the receiving of the sun rays, the temperature was increased, the high temperature, the humidity was developed, the more amount of the humidity was occurred, the perspiration was occurred. By the effect of that the evaporation process started. Due to that evaporation process the cloud condensation was formed, the clouds are formed, the water absorbing, the clouds are formed. So, those clouds are become so in the that was the formation of the clouds. What happens is they undergoes the condensation process mainly inside the rainy season. So, due to that process what happens is they become so the rainy. So the raining was, it was the clouds are going to be burst, and the water droplets are released from the environment that was on the surface of the sky region to the on the surface of the earth. So those water droplets are going to be dropped. So due to that reason, see here, the lakes are filled with those rainy season. The lakes become the water, smaller water ponds and media was going to be filled, the absorbing that water. And the rivers are always, the rivers are also there. These are also another what media. The rivers are also receive the water at the time of raining season, and they become very full. And so the raining process is undergoes the water infiltration, and the infiltration process and that leads to cause the groundwater levels are increased. That was, the soil can absorb the water, and the soil can store the water. That was a rainy water. The time in mainly inside the groundwater levels are decreased mainly in that was the summer season, and the groundwater levels are full, that was become filled with the water in a rainy season. That was mainly occurred due to the reason of a water cycle. The water cycle was rotated. So in the middle of the mainly in so on to the environmental, and in the middle of the earth, and remaining all the water medias are also there. So those water medias are nothing but, so our mainly, so we contain, so we have, so that was 3 parts are completely filled with the water. Only one part is there, that was a land. So that's why the water media, so the more amount of the water is there in the form of the oceans, in the form of the rivers, in the form of the lakes, ponds, and the water media is there mainly due to the higher temperature. The temperature levels are increased, then immediately what happens is due to the increased temperature, so the water levels are got evaporated. So tornadoes, you know very well tornadoes. So tornadoes like that mechanism, the water was that was a more amount of the larger quantities of the water levels or so entered into the so they became form the clouds due to the effect of increased temperature mainly inside the summer season. The high temperature, the water levels are so total each and every water media got evaporated and finally forms the clouds. So when the clouds are formed, so they undergoes the some reactions are occurred inside the clouds. So they going to become so the raining in the rainy season, so they become the condensation process is over. So immediately what happens is the clouds become going to be burst. Then the water droplets which are presented inside the clouds are going to be so that was fell down for the falling off the water droplets on the surface of the earth region. So by the effect of that what happens is so again the water media got received, so those again the water levels are become very high. So the rivers and ponds, all the water media become very the water levels are increased mainly inside the rainy season due to the receiving of the water droplets from the clouds. So in the middle of the environment, in the middle of the on the surface of the earth, the water levels are got rotated. The water molecules are got rotated in the middle of on the surface of the earth, and mainly the water media, that was the oceans and the rivers and the lakes, ponds on the surface of the earth region, and the environment, what happens is these water molecules are got rotated. That's why it was considered as a water cycle. So these water cycle was got rotated in the middle of the environment, in the middle of the so the water media, the lakes, and the earth also become the receives the groundwater. These groundwater levels are very helpful for the plantation. So to develop the plants on the surface of the earth region for so for the surviving of the life of the plants, the groundwater was very increased, very helpful not only for the plants, the remaining all the organisms are survived nearby the water media and aquatic media. So they needed the water for surviving, and the groundwater levels are mainly helpful for the that was developing of the plants on the surface of the earth region. So mainly in rainy season, So the infiltration, the rainwater undergoes the infiltration process, and finally that was in the form of groundwater. So that was deposited inside the soil, so on the deepest part of the earth region. So that's why what happens is those groundwater levels are helpful for the roots of the plants, or the roots are in the deepest part of the earth. That's why the roots can absorb the water from the groundwater levels, so they can able to survive. So that's why the surviving of the plants, the groundwater levels are very helpful, and these are remaining water media. So there is no water, there is no life. Why? Because all the organisms are depends upon the water for surviving their lifespan. So that was the plants, animals, higher animals, larger that was smaller organisms, all should be needed their water quantity. So the water levels are needed. So that's why if the water was mainly the water sources are helpful for surviving of all the organisms. So these water molecules are got rotated in the middle of the environment, in the middle of the surface of the earth region, and also from the plants and also from these lakes and the rivers, the water media. So this water molecules are got rotated. That's why the cycle was considered as hydrological cycle and a water cycle. So it is a total information about the water cycle. So today we are completed 2 cycles, that is one of the water cycle and another one is a carbon cycle. Yesterday in a previous class we completed the nitrogen cycle. So totally till now we are completed 3 cycles, only one cycle is left in your syllabus, that is a phosphorus cycle. The phosphorus may not be contained in the gaseous state, the phosphorus only available inside the sedimentary form. So on the rock there was the crust, earth crust. So that's why we are going to discuss it now tomorrow class. So today class is today's topic is over. That was the carbon cycle and the water cycle. 2 cycles are completed in today class. So we move on to discuss tomorrow, that was the phosphorus cycle. So that was the last cycle in your biogeochemical nutrient cycles. So that was we will discuss it tomorrow. And the carbon and the water molecules, so these are mainly the carbon was also comes under the macronutrient. So same as like as the nitrogen cycle, nitrogen is also one of the macronutrient. So that's why, so till today we are completed the essential nutrient cycles, that was carbon cycle, and yesterday that was a nitrogen cycle, and the carbon cycle is and water cycle is also over. So today's topic was completed, today's topic is completed, so today's topic is over. We'll meet tomorrow so with a new topic, that was mainly about the topic that was a phosphorus cycle, and in tomorrow class. So we'll meet tomorrow, today's topic is over, we'll meet tomorrow so with the phosphorus cycle. So today's topic is over, we'll meet tomorrow. Thank you.